Okay, we are recording, and now I'm gonna start the live Facebook stream. Facebook is gonna be nice to me. Here we go. Share on paging image. And a puppet dreams. All right. Oh, we're a little bit early, actually. 1 minute early. All right. For those who are new to the workshop, please mute your microphone. Jamie would love for you to raise your hand when you have questions, and you'll be able to ask him questions throughout the workshop. So thank you all for joining. And I think we're ready. We're going to go live, everyone. I'm going to start with a video.
Hey, Alexander. How you doing? I always have people out here.
Oh, we're going live now in 3, 2, 1.
All right.
Hang on, Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Foam and Motion Workshop. My name's Jamie Shannon, and I've probably made...
Hang on, Jamie. It's still actually... All right, and you're live.
Am I... how do I... Let me just change my screen again. How do I see you guys again? Oh, I just gotta go like this.
Okay, I'm sharing the screen. Now I'm starting the video, and then... you know what? I'll introduce you first. So welcome, everyone, to Jamie Shannon's Foam and Motion Workshop. I would like to introduce you to Jamie Shannon, who is our presenter today. And this is Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. So this is a Foam and Motion Workshop. I'm so glad to have you here. What we're going to do is actually pretty easy. It's going to, like, I made one in 15 minutes. I made this little guy in 15 minutes. We're just going to make, you can make whatever you want. It's a very sort of basic design that you can all be creative with. I don't know how many people ended up getting a bunch of different kind of foams, but I use, like, this is like a camping mat. I don't know what this green stuff was. I have a little bit of felt. The one thing I realized I forgot is something to put down so you can have a surface you're not going to get your glue on. I hope people got that. And the other thing I forgot is a brush to apply the glue if you have like this kind of contact cement. So I'm open for lots of questions because this only is going to take us 15 minutes, but I have my whole puppet shop here. Hey, can I show them on this phone? Sir Sam-a-Lot? Oh yeah, hi. Hi. All right, so yeah, so these are all, you know, I have all my materials here, and there's a lot in my puppet shop. All this stuff here. And then, so I could kind of like go around and show you different supplies as we go. The first thing, okay, I'm ready for, and the weather. And the weather tonight in Toronto is yet again hot and sunny. These are my foam bags. So I have 3 bags of foam because I use it for so many things. This is foam shapes. So this would be kind of like all sorts of half-finished puppets. And then there's like pieces like this. These are kind of, quite often what you'll do when you're making a really professional puppet is you'll save this stuff. This is like it's reticulated foam. And you get it at a sort of like, I get it at this place called Engineered Foam Products in Toronto. If you're near a big city, you probably have some place that supplies, you know, and it's used for a bunch of industrial purposes and carburetors and that kind of thing. And the good thing about it is that it never really wears out. This, on the other hand, will only last about a year or two. Like any foam mattress, you know how it just gets kind of yellow, regular foam rubber. So it's the cheaper option that you can learn how to make a puppet or figure out the shape you want to use. As you can see, this was made out of a sheet of foam like we're about to use, but it's got a bunch of kind of orange peel shaped bits. So that is my bag of, yeah, here's something neat. That's two spheres, like two circles of foam, but then when the ends are glued together, it ends up being sort of like this, you know, what's that, like a skittle.
So Jamie, you have your first question from Facebook.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Will you be covering your puppet in fleece today?
No. If you wanted to, I will give you a little bit of an instruction on how you would cover something with fleece. It's pretty tricky, and that's where you're going to really start clocking the time. It's just the time it takes to sew. But I'll show you. If you want to ask me later, I have a bunch of fleece here, and I can give you an example. I don't know if I have any fleece.
Yeah, it's a great idea. We could do that maybe.
Oh yeah, here's a sort of fleece-covered puppet. So I have examples of just about everything. This is funny. This is from I did a commercial with a bunch of puppets that needed to whistle. So this is one of the whistling. This is kind of like a dud that didn't work. It has like this really, I came up with this kind of tricky palette with these little pieces in it that, I don't know, it's not bad. I ended up using it for something else. So, I have that bag. I have a bag of colorful foams. Ta-da. And I have a bag of just extra chunks. And this is after I have to be quite disciplined to throw out any chunk that's about smaller than about that. Because then you just end up with so much foam. So, what I think we'll do is you're going to cut out sort of like, so this is made out of two pieces of foam that are glued together in the middle. So there's like a pattern. That is a very flexible thing that you can draw right on your piece of foam. All you got to do is make sure that if you have a big hand, that your finger, you can almost measure your fingers that the mouth will kind of like work that way. And then you also got to imagine, depending on how thick your foam is, you're going to wrap it around your wrist, right? So if you have quite a thick kind of foam, you're going to need, you know, much more. But in that case, I have lots of space there to put my. So after we do this, the reason I'm going to tell you what we're doing is so that if you have a smaller piece of foam, you can at least kind of plan out. Because sometimes you really are just using, you know, I have a big chunk here, but you got to measure out, well, there's one half, there's the other half, there's the arms, and there's whatever you're going to make. And these can be anything, you know. This could have been a fish. So once you kind of get rolling, the idea is to be creative. So the first thing you're going to do is draw on your foam. I drew it on a piece of paper so I could practice. If you do have paper and you want to practice first. But the one thing is, if you're going to draw on your puppet, you don't want to do this where you're going to end up with a bit of marker on the outside. So we're going to be very careful to, once we draw one half, we're going to flip it over to draw the other half. So that way you glue the marker side on the inside and you have a nice clean outside. And what I'm going to show you is how to glue the foam in a tidy way, I guess.
When you say marker, what kind of marker are you using? Are you using a Sharpie or something a little more delicate?
I'm using a Sharpie, but you could get away with a lot less. You could use like a fluorescent marker or a piece of chalk, or, you know, there's a lot of things you could use that you won't leave a mark, which is a better kind of way to go. So the first exercise is for you to cut out those, or to draw those, just one half of your two-piece face. So I don't even know what that's going to turn out with. I bet you this cone is going to be a lot smaller than I think it's going to be. And then this little mouth is working pretty well, and I can see that that's going to work pretty well. So other pieces you might use, you might be taking like a chunk of foam. So what I'm going to show you later is if you want to put on like I don't know, a nose or some ears or horns. I'm going to show you also how to just trim foam, how to cut your shapes out of it, how to free the shape from foam, like Da Vinci. So, does anybody have any questions?
Questions or comments, anyone?
That's good.
How close to your arm would you suggest you make your pattern if you're laying your hand down?
This piece is about this. It's about 5 inches. So I think if you were to measure, almost like when you go into an old clothing store and you don't want to try on the pants, and you just put the pants on half of your waist to figure out if the waist is the right size. It's kind of like that. So look at your own wrist. I am a fan, like you can make roomy puppets. A lot of puppets are quite big. I am a fan of a puppet that's tighter to your hand. And the reason that is because you get more movement from your puppet. Oh yeah, I know what I can talk about. This is important. So this is the kind of instrument you're going to be using for this puppet, the arm instrument. It's got some pretty key joints. So this, your wrist, is a universal joint, which is not unlike the head, which is also, and you know, your neck is a universal joint. Your hands and your fingers, those are, your knuckles are kind of universal. You can kind of spread them out and move them around, and your thumb's kind of universal, but your fingers just basically bend in one direction. So while you're making it, you can kind of just think, how am I going to make, you know, what do I want to make move, and how am I going to make this move? Like when you make a mouth palette, which I'm going to show you today as well, it's really not just about this. It's about being able to affect the foam on the outside and make it have expressions, because that's, you know, our face is all, it's the skin on the outside. So you're kind of like, you're making that, you're making those your expressions. So if it talks, that's good. But then being able to, I don't know, you know, expand the head, whatever you want to do with your fingers to make that stuff happen. I think I can get away with this. These are not extremely durable, but maybe I can't. I'll show you when we get to it. A lot of puppets is turning things.
I have a question from Facebook. What are your favorite items for eyes? Do you cast your own?
I am going to show you my favorite material. I have tons of eyes here. So if you wanted to start thinking about eyes, this is like cast out of plastic. I use this stuff, which I'm going to show you a lot, and I make tons of things out of this. Let me show you here. This is my favorite material in my puppet shop, and I'm going to give you a better example of this. This is thermal plastic, and it comes in these like white beads. Da-da-da. And you drop them in hot water, and then you just take them out and you can sculpt them into whatever shape you want. So many of my eyes are just made out of little pieces of that. But then sometimes it's golf balls, and sometimes it's buttons. Sometimes it's moving things, like little moving eye mechanism. It really depends on the character you're making. Sometimes it's good to just have a black bead. And those choices, those aesthetic choices, they're quite subjective in a way. But yeah, I'll show you this stuff later. It's pretty neat.
And
also,
Jamie?
I have tons of beads and stuff in here. This is all my eye world. There's a ton of eyes. Eye kit. I think what I like to do, I'm a puppet discoverer. Some people like to draw it and make the exact thing that they drew. I kind of like a little bit of error. I like my puppets all have sort of like a kind of wackiness, and I always try to not really measure that well. I don't like measuring. I don't like planning everything. I like to kind of surprise things, and I like to make choices based on what I see in front of me. So if I have a bunch of things that I can try on my puppet, that's my favorite style.
So Jamie, I think is it Addie or 80?
It's 80, sorry.
Okay, 80 had a question.
Oh, I was just wondering if you could show the pattern again, because I want to make sure I have the...
Yeah, we're back to the pattern. Yeah, let's get back to the puppet making. So here's my pattern. If you look up puppet pattern, let me show you another. I'll cut out another one. I'm giving you a really wacky one here. I'm not even gonna, you know what? Maybe for the one I make, I'll make it a bit different. You can really be quite, here, I'm gonna go like this. La la la. So, you know, maybe I want to make something with maybe I want to make it a curve back like that, kind of like a turtle. And then I can go like that. And then I can go like that with a mouth. And yeah. And then there we go. That's a whole other different shaped puppet. So this could be your puppet, or that could be. And that's kind of the profile will kind of end up, the profile you draw will be not too far. It'll all kind of roll in. So make sure you have 4 to 5 inches in the neck. If you have a thicker arm, make sure you'll be able to get that part around, especially that wider part of your arm. Make sure your mouth, because that mouth is not just going sideways, it's going to reach around to the middle of your puppet. I did a little thing here where you can see his seam there. It's so beautiful. I'm going to try to do a better job while I do this for you guys. But basically, and then I hid the back seam with this kind of little dinosaur thing. But I just wanted to whip one up so you can see what you were doing. So,
Jamie, Bill has a question about materials.
I was wondering what material you used to cover the snowman in Welcome to Kafkaville.
oh, I know, that was funny. I made a snowman for the short film somebody made called Welcome to Kafkaville. And I did play with a lot of things. And it ended up being stuffing, like dressmakers. What's that? You know that polyester stuffing that would be in a cheap pillow or a cheap... I used that, and then I used acrylic gel with little crystals in it. It was like this kind of sandy... It was like a grainy gel. And then I kind of mixed that in, and the gel had sort of like its own little slightly blue iridescence. And it really ended up looking like snow in the end. I tried quite a few things for that, though. Snow's a tricky one. So I'm going to go ahead. So when you trace this out, I'm going to use this one because I like it better. I'm going to trace this way, and I'm going to trace this way. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have a gross marker, black marker. But you can use whatever you want, and a lot of things won't be so. A lot of things will just disappear. Dressmakers use chalk, or there's this amazing purple pen that the ink disappears. So I'm taking that pattern, or you can cut this out and use that as the pattern, and then just flip it. Like so.
And while you're drawing your pattern, I got a couple questions from Facebook.
Sure.
Do you always know what you're making? I think you kind of alluded to that earlier.
I usually do. I try to set myself up in situations where I can surprise myself. But I don't know. Do I always know what I'm making? No, I have no idea at this point. So that's a good question. I don't know. I'm making something Conehead-like, but I don't think I'm going to stick with the Conehead. I think I'm going to just figure out something funny. I feel like, for me, I feel like Discovery, you'll come up with more interesting things than with your own mind. With your own
like
cliche,
that
more than your own cliche mind. And that's why I like accents. I like. I also like being limited. Some of my best things have been made in a place not like this where I have absolutely everything I can work with. So this was a good, the limit on this was like, I want to come up with something that's really easy. So that makes something, that almost gives me a creative direction. Is there another question?
Yeah. I want to get chunks of foam cheaply to make puppets. Any suggestions? I think you said at the beginning.
Yeah, you can get, well, you know what's a really cheap place to get it is carpet shops. Carpet shops sell big pieces of foam to go under. This might be from a carpet shop. And then, you know, the garbage. You can go to, you know, dollar stores also sell camping mats now. So like this, yeah, I find dollar stores, you can find so many crazy, interesting things. So this is not bad. Like that's what I made his arms and his, you know, Stegosaurus things out. I wanted to show you this. I'm cutting it out now. So I'm cutting out one half just with a pair of scissors. Try and make it as clean a line as you can, because if it's jagged, when you glue it together, it'll look like this.
Stacy has a question for you, Jamie.
Sure.
Jamie, are you really using 1-inch foam or is it 1/2 inch?
Oh yeah, this is 1/2 inch. Sorry, I didn't even have the 1 inch. Yeah, it's okay whatever thickness you have though. If you have a 1-inch foam, 1-inch thick foam, you should just leave more room because it's gonna be thicker. And that thickness will especially matter in places like this. So you might want to have a slightly bigger pattern if you have a 1-inch foam. And pardon if some of the details were a bit. I just, you know, these workshops.
Jamie, Mark had a question for you.
Yeah. So, in what situations would you recommend using molds versus foam? I mean, patterns.
As opposed to a mold.
Yeah, like I remember I've seen molds used for casting different parts of puppets, and I've seen patterns being used. But in what situations are they better in terms of using one?
I find foam is mostly under structure. You can make a foam puppet if you're just making a cute puppet, but it's kind of like here's some weird piece of foam that's got like nylon there, so it's an understructure. If you want detail or a beautiful puppet, like all these Mr. Edie puppets, they're cast. You know, that's a sculpture. And you know, and I do have some molds here if anybody wants to see. I have some plaster molds. I mean, molding's ideal. You sculpt a puppet. That's made out of clay right there. And then you just, you know, it's just time consuming. And then you know, molding would be that would be a several day workshop, I think. But, you know, I can show you guys as well. So my favorite thing now is working with silicone. I'm having so fun with this new incredible material and all the colors you can make with it. So that's definitely a case where you'd mold. I think, you know, one comment on that is that as much as possible, if you're trying to make a simple kind of like cartoony kind of thing, like the most beautiful Muppets, they'd take a piece of this reticulated foam and they would carve the hole like they were carving out of stone. They would carve that, you know, like Miss Piggy was probably started with a chunk of foam and they just snipped away until they had that beautiful sculpture made of this foam. You can, this foam as well, you can get it to be smoother because it's so porous that when you kind of like snip it for a little while, you end up quite easily being able to make a round edge. But this stuff isn't cheap. This stuff is not cheap. Not cheap. So does everybody feel like they're ready to start gluing these and stuff? Like that? Or is there another question?
I have one. How did you get into puppet building? This is from Facebook.
I think Halloween. I was a Halloween kind of guy. So My Halloween costumes got more and more elaborate. They were paper mache, and then they were rubber, and then they were, you know. I think that's it. And I'm truly from the 70s. It's kind of like that was what was going on. Puppets. Jim Henson and the Muppets and Sesame Street, and it's kind of like if you wanted to be honest, my true love is my first love was creatures. I wanted to make creatures, and I still like to make creatures.
So your show Nanoland, was that inspired by Sesame Street?
No, not really. She's here, right? Nanoland was what was it? It was kind of a bunch of things. I guess it was my inspiring Nana was a big part of it. This was also a character I had been drawing that it was just sort of like I like to try and draw the most simple elements of something. So I was kind of drawing this kind of like little Buddha character. It was just a circle with 2 eyes and 2 lines coming, laterally from the head. So that's where Mona came from. And then my partner, and he loves dogs, so he made little Russell. It's just a bunch of elements coming together. In my Nana's backyard, which I always wanted to make something out of because it was so hilarious and classic with whirly gigs and stuff like that. So
We're showing it. Yeah.
So we can ask more questions, but I should give people something to do because we're gonna have time to talk. So I have 3 kinds of contact cements here. This is the most terrible, noxious, but incredible glue. This barge, you get it at like a shoe store, like a shoe repair store. And it is the stuff that would glue the leather to the rubber to the sole of your shoe, and then be able to go through all weathers and have you jump off, train stairs, I don't know, whatever. It's a very powerful glue. But on the label it says something about nervous system damage, permanent nervous system damage, if you ever want to be frightened. So definitely use this outside. And really what we're doing, it's way overboard. It would be far stronger than the foam we're trying to glue. So this is a little bit, spray 77, or what I'm going to use is this, just regular contact cement. Here's a trick that I like to do when you're inside. I'm in Canada, so it gets pretty cold, and the glue doesn't even function outside. So sometimes I'll just do this. I'll just spray it. And then use it like a brush. And then I take a little paintbrush, and then you go along. What you're going to do is you're going to glue this entire edge of all the way around, not the mouth. Then you're going to glue the top of your head all the way down to the back, and then not the bottom. So don't glue this surface, and don't glue this surface. And you're going to do that on both halves of your puppet. Taking particular care, and I'm not going to use this, I just sprayed it. I'm going to use this one because it's right here and it's already easy. Taking particular care, so if the marker side is going to be the inside, the outside is this white clean side, you want to make sure you bring the glue right flush to that corner, like that very corner of your foam. You want to bring the glue right to that because if it doesn't have it all the way, it's going to look ugly like that. But that's also needs to be pressed together. This glue is still wet because I just made this. But sometimes with these glues, like the not as good one, or if you haven't left it dry long enough. The way contact cement works is you leave it to dry. Like a 10, 15 minutes, you can leave it. Let it just get so you can touch it and you don't get any glue on your hands, and then the glue will perform its best. And you're going to cover both surfaces of whatever you're going to glue. And now it's kind of a chill time of puppet making, imagining things.
So
The great
can
thing
I
about-
ask you a couple questions? How about a couple Facebook questions? Can you hear me, Jamie?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. All right. How do you reinforce the mouth on the inside of the puppet?
I mean, in this case, I'm going to show you how to just glue a piece of felt onto a piece of foam. So that's got a piece of felt there. I'm a big fan of felt. Some people use leather. You can use, if you ever seen leather rivets, it's a two-piece thing that you squeeze with pliers, or there's a tool that's just for it and you hammer it together. So you can use leather, which is a pretty classic material, or you can use felt. I can probably show you some mouths. Go ahead. Saw one in here. I'll show you some of my felt mouths, but I make so many different. Actually, this is from that whistling job. This was one of the defunct puppets, but that's wood. It's wood right there, and then it's a piece of rubber glued with barge at the folding point of the wood. And that's a look. Like flappy mouth puppets, like this has no ability to express itself other than, hey, how you doing? But I am a fan of that kind of simple mouth. It makes it easier to look at. Like sometimes making things too kind of like busy and squishy is not going to do it. But let me show you one of my favorite materials. I'll be right back. So this is my felt bin. And it's something I use all the time, and I'm always getting new pieces of felt. But if you get you can get kind of industrial felts. I actually ordered this online. It's really rubbery. It's so strong and kind of thicker than the average felt. You can find it on Amazon or something. And so these are pallets that were to be, and then often I would sew a little kind of strap in there. But often my puppets are so small that they don't even need it. Like the whole puppet just hugs my hand. As you can see, they're all pretty tiny. Okay, silicone.
Here's a question about the glues you use. How much do you allow for dry time for your different types of glues?
Well, as I was saying, contact cement is good to teach yourself to multitask. So once you glue something, go away and do something else for a while. Like let it dry. Let it get to that point. You can leave it for an hour. It would still glue together. It won't dry too much. But then what else is there? There's it depends on what I'm using it for. What else would I use? I don't use glue gun very much. I find it always gives out. It doesn't work very well. What else is in my glue department? Here, let's go. Let's go to my glue world. Well, you're all gluing your foam. I'll take you to my glue area. Sam. So, here's glues. Oh yeah, this one. Okay, 2-part epoxies. They're quite powerful. So anytime you're doing kind of like mechanics for eyes and sort of like durable little things, these are great. This one's for I think steel. You can do it in 5-minute epoxy, or you can get the several minute ones, or you can get, because it's kind of expensive. It's like a this is also 5-minute epoxy, but they're bigger. They're industrial. But I wanted to show you this. This glue is amazing. JB Weld. The 2-part glues really are so powerful, but this is like, it kind of ends up being a gray color. It's these 2 tubes, and you can glue anything. That stuff is very powerful. And I use that really terrible barge stuff. I actually get these smaller tubes so that I don't have to open a giant container and have all this terrible glue there. And then these are all, you know, I use a lot of spray glue or this foam. There's a foam fast too. One of these glues is the actual foam.
I think that barge you showed, the blue bottle, that's the core formula that's a little less toxic.
Oh, it is. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's and then that's my little. I kind of have a glue gun department, and I gotta get back to the puppet gluing. Back to the puppet gluing. I had someone making puppets with me once. His name's Andy Hayward. He does some great, amazing puppets, and he's the most patient guy in the world with gluing. He just sits himself down, and he never puts too much glue. It's always put on tidy, and yeah, he makes great foam forms as well. So there's really something to that. I think his method is actually just kind of like he'll just dab it. Because you really don't need a lot, especially when you're working with barge.
Yeah, and one of the secrets with barge or contact cement is you don't want it to be wet. You let it dry completely, and that's when it sticks.
Yeah, yeah, it's counterintuitive, and everybody tries to skip that, but then you just never get as good a bond. And the good thing is, with contact cement too, is it's made so that you can you can pull it apart often. Until it's dry, fully dry, you get a little bit of time. Or until you really, I'll show you how to press it. It's really, it's good for what we're doing, that's for sure. Gives you lots of flexibility and options.
Now, as a shop artist, do you have any favorite music you like to recommend to listen to, or books on tape?
There's a great Chances with Wolves. It was a great radio station. I haven't listened to it for a long time, but I was crazy with that for a while. I'm a podcaster. You know, I'm obsessed with the culture wars. Anybody else? You
mentioned that you did Under the Puppet, or one of our participants mentioned she heard your Under the Puppet interview.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good podcast if you want to listen to puppet stuff. Under the Puppet. I like to listen to people who break down movies. Like I probably do more YouTube videos than anything else. Yeah, that's one of the great things about puppet making is you don't have to let your brain totally go to waste. You can, because that's sometimes what I don't like is like, oh my God, I have to spend 300 hours and make this puppet, but you can keep your mind active. It's good, you know. Teach yourself something. Listen to history podcasts. I almost have like a little bit of guilt that I'm just making puppets all the time, so I try to always educate myself at the same time.
I've got another question from you from Facebook. Do you dispose of the glue brushes, or do you have a way to clean them for reuse?
I dispose them. I do buy I go to dollar stores and buy those packs of cheap brushes. I would never use them to paint. They're mostly for glue or for gluing, actually. They're almost all for gluing. So I constantly have like...
Let me switch here.
Maybe I can take you to this section, Sam. Come with me. We'll find Pokeroo over here. So this section here is my stick-like thing section. So it's a terrible use of those. That's the bad idea. But these are all millions of stir sticks. It's a ton of little paint brushes. Those are just all disposable. So those are just various better paint brushes. Zip ties. And then these are all constantly used in puppet mechanics. It's brass stock, and you can get these different tubing and stuff like that made out of brass. And then they also have these brass pits. They're square, and those fit into each other. So that actually works out really well. They use them on puppet rods. Mm-hmm. But one will slide right into the other. So yeah, that's my stir stick.
Yep. I use the brass tubes all the time for puppet rods.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, that's yeah. This is we have a puppet rod here. Yeah, you can see there's a little piece of brass stock. Oh, can you show that? There, that's a little square of brass stock right in there. And it's actually molded right into the hot foam. I glued mine. Oh no, I didn't. Not done yet.
I was introduced to
Why
the.
does somebody else talk? What's that?
I was going to say, Greg Bellora in Los Angeles introduced me to the Hex Stock, which is similar to the square, but if you have hex, then it gives you 6 angles to put the rod in versus 4 angles.
Wow.
It's pretty nice. So that's a shout out to Greg Bellora.
Yeah, shout out to Greg Bellora, man. Talented guy. There really is, I mean, puppet making is so fun though. I mean, I've been doing this for so many years and I'm just not bored. Like, I do it even when I don't have to. I'm like, I'm going to try to make that. I'm going to try to make that.
Yeah, can you say a little bit about the Woods puppet that you made for the 48-hour film fest? That was a really, really cool puppet.
Let me, you know what? I think I might have it. Just a sec. I do. So I made these little puppets. I was trying to make this. There's this series I've been trying to make about these little characters that live in a house. A hipster family moves to a country house, and when they show up, there's all this stuff all over, all these little houses and crafts everywhere, and they just throw it all out and move in. But they find out that there's these little people that live in all those little houses, and they're very mad. So it's sort of a series about, it's kind of like a Beetlejuice meets the Fraggles. That's my pitch. But this is my 1.0. I'm gonna do another. Actually, no, I did another version with just felt. But this is this is made with a silicone face. He's kind of made a little thing out of a brush. So the idea is they kind of like take things you'd find around a house and they make their kind of little warrior outfits. But these are kind of like tests. I was kind of trying to figure out how to, it's made with stretch fur, which is my favorite material. So, but I think they'll be pretty expressive once I kind of figure out how these little guys go.
You want to try it to your mobile cam? It might be a little bit sharper focus on that one. Let's check.
It is, isn't it? Because it's my phone. Actually, I have the eyes for him. I'll show you that too. So these are eyes that I sculpted out of that plastic stuff, and then I made a little thing for my finger, so it can. And then the eyes are just like empty right now.
And you stick them right in the holes?
Yeah. And then I have these like really expressive little. See, he's wearing a goggle for a hat. Oh, it's falling off. They've sort of been rolling around in this bag. But they're pretty funny little characters. This stuff. Some secrets I don't want to work. Like this stuff is it's this expensive, stretchy fur, and it's such an amazing thing to work with. I do really like it. But here, I could show you my silicone stuff. I'm just going to talk, and because I finished gluing, and I'm just going to let this dry. It's pretty much there, though. So to test if it's dry, you can just put your finger, but just wait long enough that it's probably not going to leave a little bit of residue of glue. This is me. I'm experimenting. Which camera's on here? This is like silicone scales. I've been trying to make this little armadillo type puppet. And yeah,
I can switch back to the other view if you want. You want to show it on the other camera?
Where are we? Oh no, I'll show that later.
All right.
So, who got this far? Ta-da! 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 Let me open my gallery view because I'm only seeing a few.
Yeah, raise your hand if you
Yeah,
got
all right.
this far.
All right. Oh wow, some people are well ahead. So, here we go. We're gonna start sticking these together. I think the most important place to start from is the most key place. So don't start from this corner down here. I would start from the face, like right there, like right where it meets. And the good thing about this stuff is you can almost place hold it. So you just kind of, and what you're gonna do is watch the outside surface. That's what you're gonna pay attention to. And when it meets itself, make it flush and then pinch it together. You can either, if you think you've got the right placement and everything's good, you can just give it a good squeeze. Like what is necessary. Which camera am I on? This one. This one. It's got like a slight delay. Okay, this one. Okay. So with this, you're gonna put your nice edge. So there's my marker edge on the inside, the marker edge, and then you're gonna press it together so it's flush. And I kind of do this kind of like pinching motion, like this with my fingers, and I move along the edge, almost like just kind of gathering it together like that. So remember, look at your nice important edge because you want that to not have, because if it doesn't meet properly, you get this. And you might, depending on what kind of contact cement you have, you might be doing this. You might have to go back and give it another pinch, but mine's coming out pretty smooth.
While you're doing that, I'm going to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
Let's see. Where is your studio located? Do you always work freelance, or are you out of the house, or are you on location?
Right now, I do bring my puppet stuff with me everywhere. So I was at during isolation, I got a cabin up north and sewed puppets. So I made myself a little kit. But this is my main shop on Toronto Island. So it's, I'm very lucky to be here. It's this building called Artscape. It used to be an old school, but there's basically, it's a park out there. So it's so nice. And there's a great beach over there, Lake Ontario. There's a creature over there. But this winter, I'm going to be moving back to the city, and I'm going to turn my back room into a puppet shop. But this is my favorite place to do it. I've got so much stuff in here. I've been here for 10 years, so it really is. It really is not very often that I'm like, oh, I don't have what I need.
And
Being a
what's the name of
pack
your
rat
puppet company?
is not good for puppet makers. I think actually the one career that being a pack rat is the best for.
And what's your puppet company called, Jamie?
I'm just calling it myself, Jamie Shannon.
Jamie Shannon, gotcha. Now you talked about how much you love making puppets, and you can make them all day. What happens when you are making your own show? How do you feel about splitting your time between making the puppets and running the show?
Yeah, that's true. When you start to make a show, you don't get to make your puppets. That's actually what was pretty nice with COVID, is I had an opportunity to make my own puppet, which I haven't done for a long time. I made this sloth. I'm going to do these sloth meditations for kids. But I sewed every stitch. It was fun. I'm also making these pretty cute dog puppets. He's got like sloth nails, but I just kind of I made him entirely. He's got little moving eyes, and that was nice. Because usually when I'm making a show, I end up just hiring everybody, and I have to get the approval guy. Yes, no, great, beautiful. I'm just showing you all the stuff that's in a puppet shop. Look at this, plastics. This is Buddy. There's just tons of little junk in here. Then I have stretchy fabrics, rubber sheets. This is that beautiful fur, that stretchy, beautiful fur, and I've just kind of isolated into different. Look at this pink one.
And what was the name of the show again with the little silicone face puppets, the woods ones?
Felts.
Belts.
The felts. It really needs to be made. It's surprisingly hard to sell a show, but I think I might just do it myself.
It's a great look. I love that the silicone faces and the little eyes and the object.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Thanks. I know. I'm excited to make.
Sorry, I keep stepping on you. Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I'm excited to make the 3.0. Like I really am excited to make it. I kind of want to make it even look like more, just a little bit more like a creature, just a little bit more kind of like creature meaning somehow alive, rather than a Muppet or a puppet. So there we go. Mine. How's everybody's puppets going? Let's see this gallery view. Woohoo! Oh, look what the teacher did. He made it almost too small for his hand. He did. The teacher made it too small for all that. But it'll be pretty funny. But here, I'll teach you a little trick. So this is almost like when you have a pair of pants, but you're filling out. You can make a little dart. Let's make a little dart. So here I have, ooh, this isn't big enough. Teacher didn't make it big enough for his hand to fit through, so I got to make a shape that big. So I'm just going to kind of do it the way I do it, which is hardly measuring, just kind of do it with my eyes. Foam is just nice and forgiving. Felt like Bob Ross for a moment there. Just beautiful little foam shapes. Just cut them out. Enjoy the sound of the scissors. Taking the foam. Just.
What brand of contact cement are you using?
I'm using a LePage Ultra Robust. That's the French version. Heavy duty English. But you could also use Super 77. And that I find contact cement's really your best thing for foam. It's because it's rubber. It just stays soft, you know. You want the glue to behave the same as your material you're using. So if you're making something hard, you can use a hard glue, but in this case, you want it to have the stretch and pull. So this is the little dart that's for the teachers. And
Jamie, I'd love to use this as a moment to plug one of our screenings on August 22nd at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Is a best of 48-hour puppet film project 2020, and that has your short film in it. That has the
mine's in it. All right.
Yeah, so it'll be in that collection. So if people want to see Jamie's Puppets in the Woods, check out the Best of 48-Hour Film Festival on the Handmade Puppet Dreams Facebook page.
Yeah, that was fun too. I don't know, for creative people, if you weren't just, you know, suffering to make ends meet, having that isolation time was pretty special. I mean, maybe you guys aren't in the same situation in the States, we in Canada shut down everything. You did too, right?
Yeah, I was there for a while. It depended on where you lived, but yeah, there was definitely some shutdown for a while. And
Yeah,
still
what
very,
a fun project to do that 48-hour film festival. How many submissions did you get this year as compared to last year?
Oh, I'd have to ask Alex again, but I think this year was like 120, 130 submissions, where the previous year was 20 or 30. So it was it skyrocketed, the number of submissions.
Yeah.
I got to judge it.
What else are you gonna do?
A question from Facebook. Any advice for repairing seams that don't seal well or come apart after wear and tear?
In fabric or foam?
In foam.
Yeah, you can do, I mean, see, right here, there's like a little, mine's kind of separating. Maybe the glue wasn't dry enough, or maybe it wasn't dry enough on one side. But sometimes I just take a brush with the contact cement and just, almost like you're putting polysporin on a cut. You take your little wound and just glue it, let it dry, and press it back together.
Have you ever super glue fixed a cut?
On my body? No.
Yeah,
Have you?
I have.
That stuff, yeah, that's the other kind of glue, which I've never been much of a user of, but people really love their.
It's great for bonding skin. So if you have a superficial cut, you can glue your skin back together.
Okay, so if people are waiting for the next step, for those that are getting ahead, here's a trick for figuring out your palette. You take a piece of paper, and then you jam it all the way back. I'm going to use another marker because I don't want to mark this up. And then you trace one half, and then once you get that half, you move it to another place and trace the other half. And then what we're gonna do, I'm just trying not to get any marker on my foam. This is gonna be beautiful. So, and you have two halves. Oh my God, I just repeated. And then you cut out the two halves and put them together, and you have a circle. Now, the way I did this foam, the inside of the mouth before, I put it on the inside of the outside foam. So I glued it on the inside lip of that. So you want to make it just a little bit smaller if your foam's an inch thick. So I'm going to probably cut it around here. I'll do a little dotted line so you can see that. So the true size of the palette is going to be more like that.
You want to switch over to the other camera, show the other camera, I'll flip it over.
Yeah, this one's pretty bright, huh?
There we go. Oh, yeah, it's much clearer.
Dotted line. Really, huh? Should we make that the main one?
Maybe for close-ups, why don't we, if you want to show the palette again, I think that it'd be useful to see the leather palette or the other on your actual puppet. Can you show that close up again?
Sure. So that's just a piece of felt that I have in there.
Got it.
Now I'm using, the foam is for the gluing of it. So just now take another chunk of your main 1 to 1/2 inch foam. And then I guess I should cut this on the true edge. And we draw this.
And while you're doing that, Maudie had a question.
Sure.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about how hard it is to kind of sell a show, and I was just curious, how far do you go creating it before you try to sell it?
I actually think nowadays, I think that you just have to create it yourself and even go so far as to make a success of it, and have people come to you. It's just I think there's just so much competition. There's so many people. But then maybe you do have that magic idea. Things can be magical. Things can happen, and if they're just we were looking for someone with a female lead, a story with a horse, and they'll be looking for exactly what you're doing. But I have so much experience, and I still have trouble selling shows. I also think it's good to have a team. So if you have a project that you have a few people working on, a team just has a greater ability to get stuff done, and I think there's a faith in a team too. If people meet a team, they're like, wow, if these people can get along and love this idea. But I think nowadays you should make it yourself, and then show them, because the other reason that is because creativity is again so subjective. So by the time you develop a show with someone, it's not going to be the same thing that you wanted to do in the beginning. So I'm just going to do this, spray this in here, just because it's a tiny little bit. Do not spray glue in your house like this. I have a puppet shop, ventilation. So both surfaces, I'm gonna let them dry. This is so that it has a burgundy on the inside of the mouth. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking my palette, and I'm just gonna glue it right in there. Ta-da! And then I'm gonna recut it out with burgundy in the middle. And then that way, this burgundy will be just like this ink that I put in this guy. If I had more time, he'd be pretty funny with some funny little legs. With puppets, this is a great thing to think as you're designing your puppet right now. I really think that I look at so many puppets, and they have what's it called, uncanny valley. And I think that's because our natural inclination is to give things our own composition, or our own, so that, you make an arm as long as an arm would be, a head and a body. But really, cartoons and characters are best when they're exaggerated or simple, and even just kind of like an idea. I had actually made arms for him. I didn't know what he was going to be. I just decided he was going to be a dinosaur at the last moment. But I had made these arms because that's kind of what a person's arm's like. But it was cut them down. I actually cut them in half, and I was like, that's still too long. They're funny if they're tiny little arms like that. And then they're just like an idea of, what's funny about Tyrannosaurus Rex is they have these vestigial arms. So it's like, hey, they're useless. And that's what gives it character. So make those choices and trim things, make them smaller, make them bigger, exaggerate. That's what really is where you're going to get your hilarious character out of it. So I probably didn't wait for this to dry quite long enough, but I'm going to stick it on anyway. Ta-da. And then now, if you were making a real palette that you wanted to make on a puppet that's going to last a long time, what this is teaching you how to make a puppet. So if you want to make something you're going to use for a show or a play, you're not going to make something like that's this kind of simple and fast. And nor will you do a little mouth like this. So look how small my mouth is, but I kind of, it doesn't need to reach all the way back. Like, little mouths are often terrific, or so are big mouths. This is going to be glued on the inside of here. Like that, and glue it on the inside of that, and then we'll have a mouth like that. But I'm gonna make a really cheapy hand strap just so you can see what it's like. So I think also, I do think a lot of times people worry too much about making a really strong mouth that opens and closes and attaches to their fingers and that kind of thing. But again, the thing you're manipulating is not the mouth. You're manipulating the face of your character. So it's about what you can do with this shape. That's what you want. You want, a puppet is a moving thing. So a good idea when you're making a puppet is to try it on a million times. I'm also going to glue this little rip I put into it. But try it on and move it and see how it moves and what you like. Because that's what they're all about, puppets. And trial and error. I'm a real tester. Like anything I'm going to paint, anything I'm going to build, I'll often test it first. Here's a trick for gluing. So in this case, here's a trick for gluing. You're going to want to put a strap. We're going to put a strap for the top of the. Too bright. Is that blowing out? That's blowing out for you, is it? So we're going to put a strap for the top of the mouth. And then I actually have a smaller strap for the thumb. Ta-da. But you want to kind of like, you're going to be gluing this little edge here and you're going to stick it to here. So what I'm going to do is put ample supply of glue on both of these and then press it in, and that will actually serve as a distribution of the other half of the glue. La la la. La la la. So, there's a lot there. Now, I can just go like this. Which camera are we on? Go like this. Doot, doot. And then I kind of like press it in, and it's like, you can see there's a couple little yellow marks there. Then you can kind of tell where your mark is, and if you need to finish it and give it a bit more glue, like so. So there's the long strap. Once again, I'm gonna go like that, like that. So those need to dry for a little while. You know what I could start doing, since we're, I'm still open for questions, but I'm gonna glue all the way around here. And then I'm gonna glue maybe I should go to this little thing again, Sam. Little camera.
Got it. Got it.
I'm going to glue the thickness of my foam along the inside edge of that mouth. So there's the mouth. I'm going to glue the inside edge of it. Mine's a 1/2 inch. If you have an inch foam, you do that. This is a little rip repair.
Do you do any specialty things on the insides of your puppets? Like you're talking about the face is what you're performing. Do you ever add extra little nubs or hooks or things?
Tons. Oh, well, it depends. Like I made this Pinocchio. This was for, actually I made a commercial called Super Clips or something. It's on the internet. I forget the name of the company.
Can you move the spray glue can, Jamie, so we can see it better? I think that's our better camera, so yeah.
It really is, huh? That's my phone. That's why. Okay, then let me raise it higher. Sorry, guys. Avert your eyes. Ooh. Okay. Ta-da. Ta-da.
Oh, we have someone with his hand up. TJ, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, so if we're planning on using paint to dye our puppet, is there anything we could be prepping for that?
I just am going to do, what you're going to do is just a bucket of water. This is like a very simple way. You mix a bit of paint in it. So you can wait. I have a little bucket of water ready. And then we're just going to probably like wet the puppet and then just kind of get it, dye it. But you know what I'm kind of thinking? I'm trying to figure out if this glue, I'm not sure if this contact cement works, if you can get it wet so soon. I might show you how to dye it and then wait until your glue dries a bit better. So
Okay.
that. So this is Pinocchio, and so he's got moving eyes. And then this moves his eyebrows.
Hey!
And I can show you how this guy works. He's like this. So this is the eyes right here. And then there's a little mechanism here in the edges of the head. He's made out of fiberglass. So these have little springs to move the eyebrow. It's funny, I just wanted to make a Pinocchio. The character from because it was from a commercial, so I had no use for it. So I was like, I'm going to turn it into it. So I always wanted. Now I have one. But yeah, mechanisms, I really think they can do amazing things. Sometimes they do nothing. Sometimes they waste your time. What else is mechanisms?
And that, you use fiberglass very much, or was it specifically for that because you needed a hard structure?
Yeah, that was specific for that. I don't use it that much, but I do. You know, there's amazing. It's expensive, but it's called West System. It's actually a boat. It's for boats, boat building. So I learned to use fiberglass. What is this modern fiberglass? But it's these two-part things, and you just squirt out one from part A and squirt part B, and it's all measured in these different kind of squirt things. And this stuff is just amazing, so strong.
And it's an epoxy?
And not noxious. What's that?
It's an epoxy?
It's epoxy, yeah. But it's not a polyester, so it's not so noxious. It's just really a lot more pleasant to work with. And that really, part of the reason I didn't fully become someone who works in a creature shop is I just didn't want to die. Because you do get exposed to a lot of chemicals with puppet making. So, you know, I just think with any of these things, it's not occasional exposure, it's occupational exposure. So I try to be as smart as I can with finding everything it's not going to kill me.
When you've run your own show, did you take extra care to set up a shop where it was safer for the employees?
Did we? We were a company.
Sorry, am I putting you on the spot?
I think we did. Yeah, we bought a pretty expensive hood, like a big metal hood that took the air outside, and had created a glue booth. That's pretty essential if you're working in a puppet shop and you're constantly making things.
Yeah, for sure. A spray booth, force ventilation, all those kinds of things to keep the chemicals from hovering over your work area.
Yeah.
Tamara had a question. She was just asking about the inside mouth palette. How much smaller is it than the outside?
It's the thickness. Well, if you use that same tracing method where you put the piece of paper and traced on the outside, it's the thickness of the foam, because what you're going to do is you're going to glue that mouth palette on the inside of the mouth there. So when I cut this guy, that pink guy, when I measured it on the outside of the foam, I had to remove that much, a ½ inch. So when I cut out that piece of paper for the palette, I cut an extra ½ inch around the whole outside. And that will fit probably pretty well. But again, it's forgiving. That's what's good about soft materials. It's funny, when I started fixing my boat, I had come from puppet making, and I had come from a place of, you don't need to measure, just cut it. And I found out very quickly that real carpentry, especially boat making, is a very exact science, down to the millimeter.
Speaking of hard materials, question from Facebook. How does the hair click back on Pinocchio? Is it magnets?
Oh, there's a little piece of Velcro top.
Velcro, okay.
Here, so this is going to dry for a second. I want to show you this beaded plastic stuff that I promised to show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the other area. So here we have a crock pot. One I will never cook another stew in, as I've been filled with weird plastic. So these little beads, I guess I can show you. I can see this. You pour them in, and they start out kind of, white, and they very quickly turn transparent in the heat of the water. And you can remelt them. Then I use this. Is this, what is this officially? It's a wiener getter-outer of the potter. Then you take this stuff, and it's kind of this, so you drip out the hot water, you let it cool down just a little bit. And then what it becomes is a sculptable material that you can make anything out of. So all these mechanisms right here, this is my Rasputin puppet right here, and all his complicated mechanisms are all made out of this stuff. Or you can make because I do think that, as I said with puppets, things when they're uneven and when they have like when they're kind of like a little bit, so here I am just making eyeballs. It might not get smooth right away, so then you put it back and heat it up again. It'll turn clear again, and you can do that a million times. It's terrific. So you make pieces, and cat wants some food, buddy.
Can you use it to cover, say, a rough edge on a handle or something, so that it's a little easier to handle?
That's what this stuff's good for as well. I literally took out to feed my cat. Everyone, I hope you're gluing your palettes and letting it dry. And if it's still dry, you can consider all the other fun things you can do. Feeding the cat. Do you know this stuff? Great. You won't even eat the Friskies.
I love that you're feeding your cat during the workshop. That's a good pet owner right there, everybody. Jamie Shannon feeds studio cat.
Say hi. So I'm going to take this plastic out of here. But that stuff is terrific. And I think you can probably get I bought a huge box, but you can get you can just get little butts. I think you get craft shops and that kind of thing. So.
What are the beads called again? Is there a product name for those?
Thermoplastic? Are they called thermoplastic?
Oh, it might be thermoplastic, maybe.
Thermoplastic.
Yeah. And somebody asked, is that Warbler? I don't know if that's a puppet that was in the background.
Yes. No, it is Warbler. Warbler, another fantastic material. It's actually kind of the similar thing. I'll show you that same way. This stuff is, I think it's a cosplay material. and they make the armor out of it. It's kind of like a, it's like a oatmeal-y plastic, but it's really. I put it inside of puppets. It's also great for. So when you put it in the hot water as well, I think more with this you'd use a heat gun. But then it becomes a totally amazing flexible material, and it'll dry to a hard plastic again. The neat thing about this stuff is it's kind of like a fruit roll-up. Like you can double it and squeeze it together. So, I mean, that's what's inside of these puppets. I made these little skulls out of this stuff. Warbler.
And the thermoplastic, is it
the most
white?
uniquely named thing, like Warbler.
Warbler.
Why Warbler? What's that?
Is the thermoplastic white when it dries?
Yes.
Thanks.
Sometimes it's drying right now, but yeah, it'll be white again. Where's the little chunks? I had a bunch of little objects made out of it. What are these? Oh, I have a bunch of teeth made out of this stuff too. I made great teeth with it. Yeah, it's drying right now. It's just kind of getting a little bit whiter and a little bit less flexible. But it stays flexible for quite a while and sticks to itself quite well. And it becomes a machinable plastic. You could screws in it, paint it. So, palettes. Da-da-da-da-da.
I'm switching cameras, Jamie. Your other camera froze.
It did? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice work. Maybe I can. So, I'm just kind of like sticking those straps. You'll have a little bit more kind of stuff holding onto your hand there. Now this is all glued. This surface is glued. How's everybody doing? It's funny, it keeps on leaving my gallery view. Do people have this ready, the foam? Ready for the palettes? Look at that. Hey, these are looking good. Nice. So, I'm going to put it in the inside. A lot of puppet making is taking advantage of being able to turn things inside out.
And I'm switching cameras again, so we got the higher resolution camera.
Higher resolution. So, once again, you're trying to bring it flush. So you're going to bring this palette, you're going to press it in like that, and it's not showing it that well.
Looks like it's blowing out on that camera too. A little bit.
Oh yeah, I am on an island. Puppet Island. Where all your fantasies come true.
That could be a reality TV show, Puppet Island.
Welcome to Puppet Island. Where you might not get what you want, but you get what you deserve. Okay, so there's my palettes in there. Hey, how's it going?
Did you want to talk about the dyeing, Jamie?
What's that?
You want to talk about the dyeing? You have about 8 minutes.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
8 minutes. How long has gone by?
Hour and 28 minutes. Oh no, hour and 22.
Okay, let me impart as much information. I can't believe how much time just passed. Okay, so for trimming stuff, you're gonna have like a not very nice edge there. To trim stuff, I think it's best to use a long pair of scissors so you can follow along with the entire corner. one nice smooth cut. And then you take the next corner that made 2 corners. And another trick you can do is kind of press on the foam a little bit. And I think what that does is it changes the angle that the scissors are cutting it. It just comes out rounder for some reason when you just give it a little press. So that's how you would smooth it out. You would smooth out those edges by just cutting all the corners and going along the whole corner in a nice even slice. And that's also, I'm gonna give you guys a bunch of information fast, so I didn't realize. Here's my, I did have inch thick foam. So same thing, if you're doing like, okay, I wanna make a hilarious nose, but this is square and triangle. How do we make it round? So you're gonna wanna keep cutting the corners. And this actually is something you'll need to kind of relax with a little bit. Because it takes a while, especially with this kind of foam to get it smooth. You'll end up cutting just tiny little slices off. And once you get good at it, you get good at looking in the corners and you know where your scissors are going, and you can kind of like, it won't take you too long and you'll be able to make a kind of a smoother surface out of that. Here's another thing that I did. For my eyes, I actually just use these tacks. You can use buttons. You can use whatever you want. I used little black tacks. These are pretty handy. I got them at a dollar store. I have a little piece of metal, so I just put a little bit of glue on that. Voila. Guess I'll never finish my comb head. Maybe I will after. Just for me. So there's a little eye. But here's something I did with this guy that's a really fun detail. I want to show you that quickly too. Is you take a little bit of your foam and you can make an eyelid. So what I did is I cut like a little piece of foam and then I rounded it. I made the ends a little bit pointy. And then the same kind of thing, I just kind of, I glued it in, and it'll give you like it's amazing how much just whatever you do with the eyes will change that. So I put like tiny little pieces of foam on his eyes, but I think that's like kind of what makes that puppet fun. So what else? Arms. I'm sorry, I was talking too much. It's great that it goes by so fast. I was having fun. For arms,
you can go a little overtime. That's fine.
Okay, for arms, what I did is I took a strip of it, and I put glue on either side, and then you wrap it around, and it meets itself. So there you go. That's a really simple like foam arm. And for the hands, I didn't really do anything too fancy. I just cut a hand out of that thing. They were a bit bigger before. I think actually they keep on looking better the smaller I make them, and more kind of like, almost like just symbolic. So, I mean, maybe I can test mine, and if it falls apart, you guys should wait till tomorrow. I'll make my cone head the guinea pig. So you can use whatever you have. I'm just going to use some dye because that makes life easier for me. But if you have acrylic paint, what you want to do is squeeze a little dab in a smaller cup of water and then stir it into that and dissolve it and then put it into your bigger dye. That's the trick for a good dye bath. So here we are, putting the orange dye in. And then if you have gloves, you can keep your hands the color they are. Unless you want orange hands. Some people like to be orange. Okay. So, I don't even know if I put enough. I probably didn't even need that much more. I can pour some of this water out. You really only just need a tiny little bit of water. Actually, I'm going to do it in this tiny little container. just going to change up everything, guys. Maybe I'll put a little bit of this red ink just to give it a little pizzazz. So, probably the best way to do this if you want to do a really nice job is you get it. Oh, I can do that. You get it wet with something else. Like I just made it wet, and then you put it in here. It's too much water. So this is just a simple way to dye your. You're probably going to need to put more ink in than I just did, but this is a nice soft pink now. I think it works, so it's fine. You could probably do it right away. But I'd put in more paint, and then yeah, then you'll have a beautiful goat head.
AD has a question about the dye bath.
Yes.
Give her 1 second.
Yeah, sorry. The raise hand button on mine just is not appearing. When you are dyeing something, do you have to like take into account the color of the palette? Like, because it's gonna, does it get changed by the dye?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yes. So maybe, yeah, if you're going to put a lot of dye in, don't put in the opposite color because it'll turn out maybe a muddy color. Mine was burgundy already, so having a pink dye wasn't too bad. But yeah, you could just, and then you just leave it in the sun. I would put a lot, I think you got to put a lot more paint in than I just did. But you're right.
And then do you let it dry out completely so that mold or anything doesn't grow inside? Do you ever have that issue?
Oh. Yeah, you let it dry out completely. Yeah, just leave it in the sun and it should be good dry. It should be dry. If you squeeze it out well, it should be dry in a couple
Cool.
hours. Well, you got something like that?
There are other questions about silicones. Do you have time to talk about silicones?
Yeah, let me talk about silicones. I want to talk about one thing that I see with arms often. People often put their arms here. I'm not sure why, because they imagine the character having a neck. Quite often the arms are funnier when they're higher, or they can be kind of anywhere. So again, you don't want to be too human with it. Don't try to put the arms right where your arms would be. They could give it character, and it really can change a character. Like this guy, I put them way in the front, like this. Or maybe your character will look good with arms way back here. It really can give so a lot of personality can come in that. Silicone. So.
I had a few questions from Facebook. Have you figured out a way to deal with the heavy weight of silicone puppets, like having a thin skin over the foam?
Yes. There's this stuff called Soma Foma. So, well, the first thing is it will be heavy just about no matter what. So I think making really small puppets is probably what you want to do, is make them small. But you could also do a thin layer in your cast. Just a second. So what's this? Okay, so here I have like frog hands. It's a mold of some frog hands. So if you painted a silicone layer in there and a silicone layer in here, and then you put this Soma Foma, it's foaming silicone, and it sticks to the silicone. It sticks to the outside in quite a nice way. I don't know if I have any examples of that.
What's the work time for the Soma Foam?
It's I think it's about half an hour. It really does froth up quite a bit. Your silicone makes great eyeball molds, because if you're going to mold your eye in something hard like plastic, the silicone just peels off so nicely.
And even if there was a process to get on Mount Rushmore, I'm pretty sure presiding over the preventable deaths of 160,000 Americans and
Let me guess what he's talking about.
That was somebody's podcast, I think, in the background.
That guy's the Kids in the Hall. He's from New Kid.
Wasn't it Seth Meyers?
Seth Meyers, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So here's the frog I had begun to make. That's in silicone. I haven't finished this guy yet, but it just has, the colors are amazing too. You can get these fluorescents and you can really create amazing layers in the puppet. Oh, that's another thing. I could have mentioned this. The angle of your mouth, you have infinite angles, you know, like just being able to kind of like, you can have a mouth that goes like that, like that, like that. But yeah, so I've been really sort of enjoying working with silicone. I just love the colors. I love the way you can kind of layer it like you're doing an oil painting. What happened? Is there something I've missed as well? Is there something else I could chat about?
I'm checking the questions on Facebook right now. Someone asked about a release agent. I think that's regarding the silicone, which
yeah,
silicone.
I mean, I have it. My release agent. Release agent. I have Soma too.
Also,
I can show you these things.
Also, how do you attach fur?
Oh, that's right, Bill. You had asked that. Sorry about that.
Oh, to this.
To the silicone.
Oh, to the silicone. Oh, you know, nothing sticks to. You know what sticks to silicone actually? If you want to get the best glue for silicone, get marine grade silicone. It's like you can just get little tubes of it, and it's the kind of silicone that you'd put around your window. But if you get marine grade, it's very sticky. So you can actually just put a layer on the fur and a layer on your silicone and just go up like that. But if you want to do sort of more special effects hair, you take a pin. It's a neat technique actually. You take a sewing needle. I wonder if you can see that. No. So you take I can draw it. So if you take a sewing needle and you cut it. So it's kind of like, there's the end of a sewing needle. You turn it into a little fork because there would be the regular end of the sewing needle and where you put your thread through. You take a pair of wire cutters and you cut your little hole in half so you get a miniature tiny little fork. And then you take that pin and you take fur and you punch it into the silicone, and it almost goes in like maybe 5 strands at a time. So that's how, if you're like a real creature maker and you want to like have the hair get longer and longer or have tiny little bits, and you know, that's the technique that they use for that. But for me, I was pretty amazed how well just a marine grade silicone works for gluing just about anything. And you glue silicone back to itself. So a lot of people will say, you know, they sell a lot of products with it, Psycho Paint and silicone glue and that kind of thing. But where you can, I think you might as well just get that over-the-counter silicone stuff. It's really easy.
Regarding the punching, Stan Winston's school has a great tutorial on fur punching if you want to do.
Oh yeah,
fur.
yeah. Stan Winston, it's pretty helpful that. You know, he goes slow as I am going, but you can zip through and you can learn stuff. They're talented on that one.
Yeah, well, Jamie, how do you feel? Did you cover everything you wanted to cover today?
I feel pretty good. Was there any questions out there that I didn't cover? Let me look at can people show what they did?
Yeah, let's see how everyone's doing.
Woohoo! Nice one, Tamara. Jen, beautiful. Andy, wow, look at that thing. Can you guys see everybody's?
Yeah.
Wow, look at these.
Yep, we're on gallery view for everybody to see.
Hey, that's super. You guys did better than I did. I guess I was paying attention to a bunch of things. That looks good, man. Monty, Miranda, Justin, TJ. Love these things. I want to take a screenshot. How do I do that on my computer?
Shift Command 3.
Did you take one? You should take a screenshot. Oh yeah, Miranda's is, or no, who's that? Someone's having a drink there. Nice one, Alexander. Beauty. Beauty. Wow,
Everyone
you
hold up
did
your
so
puppets.
much there. You almost
Let's see
finished
the
like.
photo.
Did you put fabric on yours already? Who's the one with the green eyes there? That fella. What is? Yeah, your thumbs up. You put fabric already, huh? Beautiful, Stacy, Bill. Nice work, everyone.
Good
80,
job.
yeah.
Good
Lisa,
job.
look at that beautiful feathers. These are great, man. Cool.
Well, everyone, if you want to turn your mics on, then you can all say a few words, and then I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Jamie, for joining us, for teaching the group.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. This is
Thanks,
great.
that was
Thank
fun.
you, Jamie.
Fun as hell.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at the left.
You the man, Jamie. You the man.
We want to see your show.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
We want to see it.
Keep the puppet love alive.
So thank you all for joining. And this is our last official workshop for the summer, but we'll take a short break, a couple weeks, and then we'll come back with a whole bunch of new workshops going into the fall. So thank you all for joining us, and check out Handmade Puppet Dreams on the Facebook page for Handmade Puppet Dreams, Ibex Puppetry. Follow Jamie Shannon. You want to give a shout out of your socials?
Jay Shenanigan is my Instagram. That's good enough.
Okay, Jay Shanigan. All right, thank you all for joining us.
Thank
I'm going to
you.
stop the
Thanks for
live.
facilitating sales.
No problem.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye, everyone.
So,
Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
And you don't have to jump
Bye.
out
Bye.
to talk
For
to
me.
Jamie now. Live stream is over. Now you can talk to Jamie for a few minutes before we wrap
Yeah,
up.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm impressed with these puppets, man.
Me
All
too.
right,
You did a
These are
great
cool.
job.
Say to
Any further questions?
anyone who's looking for more like puppet building stuff, Adam Cruttenger and Swazzle on YouTube are excellent, and I've been learning alongside a lot of their videos.
Do
Yeah,
they
they're
have
both
where
great.
theirs on YouTube?
Yeah, Adam Cruttenger, who also does the Puppeteers podcast.
Oh yeah, I learned
Uh,
stuff from him when I want to go back to it. He's very talented.
Yeah, he's and then Swazzle does a lot more working with like carving out of foam and stuff. Like they have stuff specifically like a video on like how to glue foam and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Swazzle's been doing it for years. I worked with them like 10 years ago when I first got to LA. I slept on their couch. That's the first place I visited when I came to LA from San Francisco. And we've just been kind of, watching each other's careers as we've gone and done our stuff. They're always working on things.
They're so good.
Kidding.
There's a puppet podcast thing. It's literally just called Puppet Podcast, and they have a Patreon. And Swazzle did how to make like mouth plates that I watched the other day. That was excellent. That was up on Facebook.
Oh yeah, I'd like to watch that.
I think they did most of the Gelfling bodies for Dark Crystal, like the inside structure.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
But then
there's
they turned
so
it
many
over.
million
Then it went over
techniques,
to.
and everybody just learns themselves. So you can learn so much from people because everybody does things differently.
Yeah, it's almost like apprenticeships. You can kind of pick up bits and pieces from each different artist because everybody has their, like you, Jamie. You have your tips. Stacy Gordon, she's great too. She's there in the middle. Stacy's built so many different kinds of puppets over the years. She's really amazing as well.
Thanks, Sam. So is Austin. Austin's super good too.
So, yeah, those of you who are new, just reach out to the puppet community. There are plenty of people to learn from. So
yeah, I know some people here too. Annie Fisher, she makes amazing things, tattoos and artwork. Mark Terrett, he was my student. He's a very talented puppeteer. He owns Dudley the Dragon.
I do.
And is Mike here, or did he take off? Yeah, and Alexander, he came to some workshops. Very funny new generation of puppeteers that he's part of this gang of very talented guys.
Keep making stuff, everybody. Keep making stuff. You get better by making.
Yeah. Lisa, how big is your puppet?
It wound up being more like a finger puppet size because I didn't grab enough foam.
That's cute.
because I was using 1/2 inch because it was easier than some of the other stuff I had with me. So it's more finger puppet size.
Adorable.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, anyone have any more questions for Jamie? I think we're good. We all good?
Well, have a great night, pals.
Thank you so much.
Done.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Jamie.
Oh, wait, real quick.
You have a question?
Question.
Any question? I am loving everything that I am seeing. I'm wondering, could people take pictures of whatever they wind up with when they finish, if they finish? And Sam or Jamie, could you post it somewhere?
That's a great idea. I would.
Because these are
Jamie,
amazing.
go first. Go first, Jamie.
I know. Yeah. Well, great idea. Do you have? But Sam, you've got the medium.
Yeah. You know, if you email the pictures to either film@ibexpuppetry.com, or if you wanted to send it directly to the Handmade Puppet Dreams Facebook page as a message, and we can post them either as they come in, or we could wait and get as many as we can and then put up a gallery. Either way.
That means I actually got to finish it.
That's right. Jamie, you got to finish yours too.
They're pretty fun. I love how much we did get a lot done. Like, you guys almost have puppets out there.
It's true.
A little bit too much talking.
I stuck mine in a dye bath, so.
Oh yeah, who did? How did the dye bath work?
I have it soaking.
Oh yeah, it could be just a theory.
I grabbed a scrap piece
Oh yeah, look at that.
and did a dye bath.
Oh yeah, that worked. Yeah, testing is key. That worked. Your dye were well. How much did you put in? You used acrylic?
Yeah, I used acrylic, and I did put it in a couple of times and squeeze it. I don't know exactly how much because I tended to eyeball it rather than measure it. So.
What color did your foam start?
White.
Cool.
Like this.
Yeah, it does work. You just gotta get the right mixture.
Awesome.
In some ways, all you maybe need is a tiny little bit of water and paint, and then you just squeeze the whole thing into that. You don't need to soak it. It's not a dye bath. It's more like a dye, pool.
Dye pool. All right. Well, share your pictures. We'll post them when they come in, and thank you all again. And we'll watch for announcements. We are working on a bunch of new workshops, so probably end of this month, early next month, we'll start a whole new round of them.
Oh, thanks. You guys, that's so fun.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Jamie. Sam.
Bye, take care.